Hello and welcome to week 8 of PA117. This week we are in chapter 7 and it starts on page 157. Chapter 7, Workplace Safety and Laws. Before we jump into that, just so I can get some housekeeping out of the way, your week 8 surveys are due this week, and that is just basically feedback for me. We used to offer extra credit for that. But it is, I guess, against the rules to do that. So we're not allowed to give any extra credit. But if you would please give me some feedback of how I'm doing and how you like your classes, it really helps us to improve the structure. And it's just great feedback for us. So thank you very much for completing that. So let's start on Chapter 7, Workplace Safety and Laws. Some of the things I wanted to point out to you was on page 159, OSHA. You're going to see this all over the place, certification exam, and then especially in the real world. OSHA stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and it is abbreviated OSHA, but spelled OSHA, or pronounced OSHA. And it says in 1970, President Nixon signed the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which created this U.S. Department of Labor. And so you'll see it all over. It's basically telling us how to be safe and how the regulations have to be in a workplace to keep people safe. So like first aid, physical workplace, protective clothing, that kind of stuff. And we do a lot of OSHA like in the laminar airflow hoods in the hospitals, nuclear pharmacies, those kind of things. But then also in the retail pharmacy, there are some OSHA regulations there as well, where you need to wear gloves or masks or not, depending on what you're doing. So like exposure to hazardous chemical standards, like I was just talking about, so you might want to read up on that. And then like bloodborne pathogens on page 161, there's that. Aseptic technique, talking about the laminar airflow hood, that is where we do a lot of our IV compounding, or we do sterile compounding there, meaning that if we're going to inject a needle of medication into an IV bag, that we have to get into aseptic technique and into PPE, which is personal protective equipment. So make sure you read these 2 pages, what it means to get into PPE. You're gowning and gloving. Sometimes you're wearing goggles, sometimes you're wearing masks, or most of the times you're wearing gloves, and then using the aseptic technique to make sure that your hands are clean before you get into PPE. So there are things here we're talking about what the FDA requires, what the Joint Commission requires, sterilization, how it needs to be clean, accurate, and appropriate, packaging, those kind of things, how the labels have to be. This all is part of the workplace regulations and safety and laws. It goes into a little bit more of that. You can read some of that, going into fire safety. But the last thing I wanted to hit on, disposal of hazardous materials and spill cleanup. You want to make sure you know about the biohazard and sharp containers on page 173. And any violations of OSHA and what you should do with that. Page 176, workers' compensation. Here's what I want to talk to you. This is what your discussion is about. And workers' compensation laws establish procedures for compensating workers who are injured on the job, with the employer paying the cost of the insurance premium for the employee. So your discussion gives you an example of a pharmacy technician who is delivering medication to a nursing home while on the clock. I think that's what it said. You might look at that detail. Had medication in the car with him, and who would pay for his medical bills, and so on and so forth. Make sure you read over what workers' comp says, and then give me your answer. So page 176 to 178 talks about workers' compensation, who is responsible for the medical bills, who pays for the 4 months that he had to have physical therapy, that kind of stuff. Give me your answer on that. That's a right or wrong right there. No opinion, just right or wrong. Then it also talks about sexual harassment, and a lot of that will be in training when you're hired onto a job. So you don't have to know a lot about it here. Just make sure that you kind of hit the points about what it means to have a sexual harassment kind of law in place. All right, hope you have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.